All right, let's talk about, we've done quite a bit of this already. I want to come down to here, guys. Obligation, responsibility, definition of standard of care, blame, responsibility, and malicious intent. All right. Now, obligation, responsibility, okay, so we did quite a bit of this last week, so I'll be quick through the obligation, responsibility. Obligation, responsibility, it refers to when you are in a position of control. There are people underneath you, or there is a project underneath you. You have an obligation, right? So with obligation comes responsibility, right? And your requirement is to apply a minimum, these are the keywords, standard of care, right? So for example, if I'm the lecturer, my obligation is towards you, the students, and the responsibility is to the university, right? To deliver the notes, the tutorials, the labs, everything has to be set up. The lecture room booking, lighting and so forth has to be done. That's a responsibility. Now I have to apply a standard, a minimum standard of care. Minimum standard of care means that I can't just say, oh, don't worry, we'll turn up to the lab number 1 and I'll just dictate what the lab is. No, that is, even though the lab did take place, let's say for the tutorial, I just come into the tutorial room and I start writing down the tutorial question on the whiteboard. And I expect everybody to copy it. Students do the tutorial based on what is written on the whiteboard. The tutorial answers come out, the discussion takes place, that's all good. Did the tutorial take place? Yes, it did take place. Did I apply the minimum standard of care? No. Why? Because one of the criteria for tutorial is the students must see the tutorial before the question, at least the question. They must see it and start thinking about it, or if they are capable of doing it, they should attempt the problem before coming into the tutorial room, right? They must attempt the problem. In our case, our tutorials are very theoretical in nature. It's more discussion-based, as you may have seen in the last 2 or 3 weeks. So the key point is the minimum standard of care was not applied. I may argue, if I'm a rogue lecturer, I may argue, oh, don't worry. Those students, they did the tutorial. I went and wrote it on the whiteboard. They copied it down in the exercise book. And then they did the tutorial. Everyone was happy. No. Even though the tutorial did take place, the minimum standard of care did not. Right? So that's the thing. You have to apply an expected standard of care. You can't just go in and, expect certain things, just do what in local Pacific language they say a very quick 5-minute job. You can't expect to do a 5-minute job and apply the standard of care. Standard of care means anything with care requires time and energy, right? Okay? So if you have got any responsibility allocated towards you, if there's any obligation, if there's any responsibility towards you, if you've got some workers underneath you, or if you've got a project underneath you, if you have been given a task, maybe you are the only person on that task, you have to apply the standard of care. All right? Okay. And standard of care is different according to each project. Now, I'd like you to read through that when you are free, because it'll help you in your particular studies. All right? And remember, this unit, E381, MM381, it may be probably the most theoretical unit which you've done in your 4 years. If you look at what you boys are doing, some of the electrical guys are doing in E392, that's highly mathematical, right? Highly mathematical in nature, right? For those of you guys who are doing mechanical, if you're doing thermofluids or thermodynamics, that's highly mathematical in nature as well, right? And highly analytical. But our course is probably the one which will be applied the most when you are in your workforce. When you join the industry, whether it be next year or if you've got a 6-month delay or mishap, and it's 6 months down the line, this course will be the most useful, right? because project management is going to be, right from the beginning, you'll be in project management. Now, this is where it comes in. You don't want to fall into a situation where blame has been assigned to you. That's another legal term, right? Now, there's something else known as blame responsibility. And blame responsibility is when there is a mess up. How do I make this full screen? Okay. How do we make this full screen? This one. Right. Now, if something goes wrong, the company or the firm, depending on how worse it is, right, they will look to assign blame. This is a key terminology. This is not some short story from literature or something. The company or the firm will look to assign blame. Now, there's different levels of blame. And why do they want to assign blame? They want to make restitution, right? The word restitution means they want to make some punishment. Blame does not go without punishment. They want to punish the offender. Offender is actually the wrong terminology. Offender is more so the case in criminal jurisdiction. In this case, it's more civil. But if your project has a mess up, blame has to be assigned and there's to be restitution. Sometimes the restitution can be, or the punishment can be that, hey, you'll be demoted. Another punishment can be, hey, sorry, you're terminated, right? Okay, you're terminated, you don't have a job anymore. And that can carry a very negative impact. Because remember, the Pacific is a very small place. There's only a limited number of employers. If you get assigned the blame, right, and there is some restitution made against you, there is a possibility that you may never be able to get out. You may, because if you go to another company, they'll already know that, oh, this is the guy who made the mess up there, right? The word will spread very quickly. So you've got to be very careful, all right? Okay. Now, there are three levels of blame responsibility, right? Firstly, there's malicious intent, recklessness, and neglect. Let me give you an example. Malicious intent, I think we gave a good example in the U8, in the U8 lecture theater on Monday. Malicious intent means you deliberately, as the engineer, deliberately designed or did something to make sure the project failed. Like, for example, you deliberately misreported that that the tires of the plane are inflated. Let's say you're the maintenance engineer. You deliberately reported that it is inflated and the tires are in good condition, when in fact the tires were bald and in bad and deflated, right? And then later on the plane got an accident when landing or taking off, right? That's deliberate. You deliberately did this, right? There was malicious intent, which means your intention right from your heart was, I'm going to damage this airline. Or you deliberately threw what they call a spanner in the works. Have you heard of this expression in English? It says throwing a spanner in the works or throwing a spanner in the gearbox, right? To damage the system deliberately. This happens a lot in Fiji, right? Happens, I don't know about the rest of the Pacific, but it definitely happens a lot in Fiji where people, they get, some worker gets told off by the supervisor. What he does is he goes and deliberately does something wrong, even to that extent that some workers, they set fire to the factory or something like that. There's a lot of cases of those, right? So that's malicious intent. This may fall under criminal jurisdiction. Criminal jurisdiction. Now, the next case is recklessness. Recklessness is you know that there is standard of care required. You deliberately, you're doing the job. There is no malicious intent. You like the company, right? You like Fiji Airways or you like FMF Biscuit Factory, right? You like the breakfast crackers. But malicious intent means, recklessness means, whilst you were supposed to be supervising the temperature at the biscuit factory oven, what were you doing? You were playing a game on your mobile phone, right? And then, winner, winner, chicken dinner, all right? Okay? Right? Then something goes wrong and one whole production, 1 3-hour production of 2,000 biscuits gets burnt. Why? That's recklessness. That's reckless behavior. Another reckless behavior is well, because you're an engineer, you won't be doing driving. I'm trying to give you engineering examples. If somebody is driving recklessly, you guys all know, car accident and all that. But as an engineer, there's most likely that you won't be doing delivery, you won't be driving a delivery van, all right? Okay, you'll probably be on the shop floor, all right? Because if you're an engineer and you end up driving a delivery van, there's something wrong somewhere, okay? All right. Okay. Now, another example of recklessness is what you do is you've been given a task. You give it to your junior boys, some of the some people coming in on attachment, right? And then, they are half-cooked engineers because they are second-year students. So you give them to do some calculations. Your job would have been, that's all right, you gave them some tasks to do. Your job would have been to check their design and check their calculations. But what did you do? You went and just submitted it as final. That's reckless. That's reckless behavior. So reckless means you have not applied the standard of care required. The last one is negligence. Negligence. All right? Now, negligence means that you were supposed to check or double check your work, right? But because you were under pressure, you didn't get enough sleep, and you knew, this is the key part, you knew there is a large possibility of human error. There is a larger possibility of human error, right? Okay? But you didn't check it. So for example, if there's some calculations, you're supposed to check the wiring, right? But maybe your vision wasn't clear, you were tired that day, you had too much cover the night before, right? Or something like that, right? And you couldn't focus, or you had a very bad headache, right? So, or hangover or something like that, but you couldn't do the job properly. But in that case, you could have flagged it up and said, hey, can you check this? It's supposed to be red, green, blue, red, green, blue. All right? Let's say the wire colors. Or could you check this calculation? You should have flagged it and said, hey, I'm not confident that my answers are correct because I'm not in a good state of health, or I'm stressed out, or I haven't had enough time. Usually this job gets done over a period of 3 days, and I've done it in 2 hours, so there's a possibility there's some errors here. So that's negligence. That's negligence. Negligence is a lowest form of blame responsibility. With malicious intent, you could go to jail, right? With the next level, recklessness, you will get terminated, and your career will be damaged. There may be some civil proceedings against you. You may get sued. There may be civil proceedings against the company and against you. With negligence, you may be demoted, right, but not terminated, all right? Now, the other thing to note is, if you are aware, in the case of malicious intent, that your friend does not like the boss, right, and he's planning to do something malicious against the firm, right, it's your duty to report, right? There's a standard of care required. If your workmate is doing something, is about to do something wrong, or has done something wrong, it's your duty to report. Why? Because you will cause disrepute to your firm. And if your firm goes down, you're going to go down anyway, right? If your firm not going to win any tenders, even though you're a junior engineer that you just joined 2 months ago, if they're not going to win any tenders, they won't be able to pay you anyway. So they're going to sink, right? Okay, and if there's some recklessness, you're supposed to counsel because recklessness is not intentional, right? Recklessness is just careful. You're supposed to counsel your fellow engineer, hey, next time please make sure you do this, 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 because this thing can go wrong, all right? Okay, now, problem of many hands. When there are too many people assigned in one particular project, right? Have you heard the English expression says, too many cooks spoil the soup, right? If you have too many engineers assigned in one project, there is a problem. There is a problem, all right? The problem is that everybody points to the next guy. No, I think he did it. No, I think he did it. He's supposed to do it. So in the end, nobody does it. That's why you will notice for electrical this year, what we've done is, for the 388 project, we've reduced the group size to only 2 students. And I think for mechanical as well. Is it only 2 students? Last year it was 3 students per group. So this year it's down to 2. All right? So that there is no problem of many hands. If there's 2 people, you can easily assign blame to both of them, right? But once it's large, it's very hard. Now, impediments to responsible action. These are some of the things which reduces responsible action. Self-interest, self-deception, fear, right? Self-interest is you got an interest in the, let's say, the rival company, right? Self-deception, where you deceive saying, no, 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 don't worry, it will work. You'll hear this a lot when you join the industry. Don't worry, that machine will go. Don't worry, even if we don't change the engine oil and all that, it'll go. Don't worry. Things been going for 3 years now, no problem, right? Don't have that attitude, right? Fear, when you are scared to change, you don't have the competency to do the right thing, right? Or question your supervisor, hey, sir, excuse me, but I think we should change it now, otherwise it might get messed up. Ignorance is the same as negligence, right? Sorry, recklessness. Egocentric tendencies, when you think, don't worry, I know I am right, right? I am always right. That's egocentric tendencies. Microscopic vision, when you can only focus on one little thing and forget the big picture. Uncritical acceptance of authority and groupthink. All right. Okay, this is case 1, case 2, and case 3. I presume you are already looking at the videos online. Now, the next topic which I wanted to cover was, I just wanted to show you, there's something called responsibility in engineering, and this is from a particular book chapter. I would like for you to read this. If there's 3 chapters which I'd like you to read, it's the responsibility in engineering, it's the professionalism in engineering, the responsibility in engineering,